Okay, well, welcome back to another exciting edition of Lone Star Chronicles. We have Misty back with us today. Misty, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. We're about ready for Thanksgiving around here.
I know I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I do have a big duty on my hands tomorrow. I have to make three dishes of pasta. We're going to go down to our local Hope Clinic, which is a little community medical clinic here for Thanksgiving. My wife and I are going to give out some pasta to people for Thanksgiving. So tomorrow is going to be a big baking day for me, but I
That's
love
a
it.
lot of noodles.
It is. It is. I'm not sure if I'm making lasagna yet or if I'm making baked ziti. I don't know, but we'll come up with something. But there's nothing quite like an Italian Thanksgiving, I guess, right?
I mean, I've had all kinds of variations of Thanksgiving. I think my favorite was actually having a Tex-Mex Thanksgiving where we had
Oh,
cheese
sweet.
enchiladas. It was fantastic.
Sounds great, actually. I could go for some cheese enchiladas right now, but we're not
Me
going to get
too.
too far into food. Let's pick up where we left off on our last episode. So we were talking about Ames. We're talking about, oh, not Ames, Potter. And Potter he's just been killed, right? So poor Harriet, she's her husband's been chased out of the house. He's gone on and basically been killed in a river. And it's the next morning, and Harriet's just learned of her husband's demise. So tragic, uh, just a tragic turn of events for poor Harriet.
Yes. So to back up I don't remember if we covered this, but to back up just to about 12 hours or so. So the night that this all goes down, eventually Rose's men and Rose make it into the homestead while Harriet is frantically searching for a match to set off the cannon that she still can't. She never does find the match. But anyway, so Rose does make it in there, and at the time he doesn't realize yet that Potter has been shot. Um, Harriet suspects, but doesn't know for sure. Nobody really
Right.
knows. She seems to think that he might have made it through it. And Rose gets in there and to his credit says, okay, we did what we came to do. We're done here, and
We're
leaves
not
Harriet.
going after you. So at least
Right.
he has a little bit of honor, right?
I mean, you could call it that.
Yeah, yeah,
Again,
yeah.
they do call him Roaring Rose. So he and his men leave, and Harriet's left to clean up the mess. So
Mm,
they lick their wounds. They search for Potter. They find the body, and they bury Potter. He initially is buried in the family plot there at Potter's Point, but eventually down the road, they exhume him, and he's now buried down in Austin in the state cemetery, um, and is resting in peace. So then the law starts to get involved, and Rose is going to be tried for murder. Rose and
yep.
his men are going to be tried for murder, and poor Harriet, as if she hasn't been through enough. Now she's got to go through all of this. So the closest
And
courts
she's got
are.
the estate to get worked out,
Yep.
I'm sure,
She's
on top of all
Yep,
of that.
and our poor suffering Harriet. It only gets worse, of course. So in the meantime, the closest courts, we take for granted in this day and age that, the courthouse is not too far away, and there's law and order and justice and everything is in place. But back then it was still very, very new, and there
Hmm.
weren't a lot of the courthouses and districts and so on and so forth. So Harriet had to go pretty far away for the court proceedings. Okay.
Golly.
Um, like a day's ride or more, for the court proceedings, and so she packs up to go do that and be bear witness at the trial and all this kind of stuff, and she leaves her remaining children, in the hands of some of the help there at Potter's Point, um, and so we deal with another tragedy at this point. While Harriet is away, well, before she leaves, she tells the lady who she leaves in charge of the children, "Look, you're flighty. You basically ADHD before we knew what ADHD was." She says, don't take your eyes off of these children. And while you're doing this, while you're caring for my children, do not make soap. Now, here's why. If you can look into old soap making practices and so on, it was a very long process. They did it a couple of times a year.
Uh-huh.
It involved a big pot and lots of boiling ash and lye and all the things. Um,
Tough
and this
chemicals.
one, yes.
Absolutely.
Um, and accidents were almost always fatal. So she
Mm.
tells this lady who was the person on the homestead that was responsible for making the soap. She knows that that's what she's probably going to do. It's that time of year, and she says, "Don't make soap. Just don't, okay? Because
Yeah.
I want you to mind after the kids." Um, well, that person doesn't listen to her, makes soap, takes her eyes off the kids. The
And
plot
thinks
gets
probably
turned.
to themselves, "Hey, it's not gonna. It's no big deal. I've done this a million
Yes.
times." Yeah.
Yes. It always happens to someone else. It's not gonna happen to me. Well, it did.
Mm.
The pot got overturned, the child got scalded and passed away.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yes. Now Harriet doesn't know this. She's away at the trial. And as if that's bad enough, she's not gonna learn that for a bit. And Rose gets acquitted. The yeah.
Hmm.
uh,
Okay.
there's you could do a whole separate episode on the court systems back then, but there might have been some corruption there, some suppression of evidence. What we
Mhm.
know now as
Mhm.
the courts is not like what it was back then.
Oh,
So
not at all. Yeah.
he cited the judge cited lack of evidence against Rose or his men, and everybody just got to go home. So
Wow. Just like
yeah.
that. Golly.
So she is devastated because, her husband was murdered practically in front of her. I mean, not technically, but practically in front of her. And now what's going to happen to her? Her marriage comes into question once again. The validity of the marriage comes into question once again, and it causes a lot of backbiting and tongue wagging and that kind of stuff. And poor Harriet's just like, I just want to go home to my kids. So
Well, and that there wouldn't be like questioning the validity of the marriage would be also questioning the validity of the estate. I mean, so
mhm.
that's pretty big deal, right? So
And
she could.
Rose had made legal plays for Potter's Land to begin with. So there's some speculation there that might have had something to do with it. Some pockets might have been lined or something along those
Mhm.
lines.
Mhm.
So Harriet decides to go home to lick her wounds. She makes the drive home. Uh, in the meantime, in between Potter's death and the trial, and then while at the trial, she sees a lot of our Charles Ames. So here he comes into the picture. Okay, he's quite a friend to rely on. Helps her navigate what is, I'm sure, the most difficult time of her life. Which is saying a lot for Harriet because she's been through a lot.
Yeah, that's
So
I don't know about this most difficult time thing. This is pretty rough.
they don't call her the bravest woman in Texas for nothing. Um, so she gets back home to the homestead and finds that, to add insult to injury, now her daughter is dead as well.
Mm.
So they bury the daughter, and she starts trying to figure out what to do next. Um, so the timeline on this might be a little fuzzy because there's not as much written about this, but
Mhm.
eventually, she begins to allow herself to be courted by Mr. Ames. Okay. Around the same time, um, Cass County carved out, well, the state, because now we're into statehood. Okay.
Right. Right.
Um, So the state is reorganizing and setting everything up, and they carve out, and we're also in the Civil War era now. We're butting up against that.
Mm.
The state carves out Marion County out of the bottom of Cass County because I mean. Cass County was tremendous. I mean, it still is,
It
but
was
it was even more tremendous back then.
right.
There's a lot of governmental organizing and stuff going on. In the meantime, Harriet finds out. some even more devastating news. So let's approach this pretty carefully. Uh,
I can't
um,
even imagine.
by rights, because she was married to Potter, and again, that comes into question. Was she really married to Potter? Was she still really married to Solomon Page?
Right.
You could look at it. There's yeses and nos on both sides, so it's a matter of opinion. But by rights, at this point, Harriet believes that Potter's point should be hers.
Right.
Um,
And
she
just to
finds
remind all of our viewers, sorry to cut you off, just remind
no
all of our viewers, she and Potter, when they were married, there was no there was no preacher
official.
present, right? Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
official. Like, what was the name of the marriage that you said that they
marriage by bond.
marriage by bond? Okay, because it was one I
Mhm.
hadn't heard of until you and I had talked about it. So that makes it even more questionable, though.
Right. Supposedly, just to take our viewers back a little bit, so supposedly, because there were no, I mean, they were basically in the wilderness in North Texas or East Texas. There were no preachers, there were no judges, the things like that. So
Right.
Potter, Robert Potter claimed that Harriet's marriage to Solomon Page was invalid. It was null and void because
Correct.
before the Republic of Texas became the Republic of Texas, it was Mexico territory. And according to Mexican law,
All
all
Catholic
marriages,
law.
yes, all had to be Catholic. Okay. So
Right.
Potter's argument was since Page and Harriet married outside of Texas and not in the Catholic Church, that when they got to Texas, their marriage was no longer valid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
could
quite
say
the
that,
argument.
right? But and then by rights, he can marry her, adopt her children, and get his giant head right. So, um, but then on the flip side, uh, was the so even if that's true, it was the Potter marriage valid either, because it was a marriage by bond with the intent of taking that to a justice of peace or judge or clergy or something that never got done. So they just had this
Oh, so
marriage.
wow, they never
Yeah.
finalized this marriage by
Yeah.
bond.
Um, which maybe Potter, I mean, he was an attorney, so maybe he knew that it couldn't be finalized and that's why it never was. And you go back
Interesting.
again where there's no way to judge intent. So did Harriet really know that all this stuff was really fuzzy and in a gray area, or did she choose to believe Potter because that's what she wanted to believe? It there's no way for us to know that now.
Oh yeah.
So
Golly.
yeah. So, um, she ends up marrying Charles Ames, and around the same time that she marries Charles Ames, and they're trying to settle in at Potter's Point. Ames, by the way, had his own head right, but that's totally irrelevant to all this. But he did get some land after he served the Republic of Texas as well, um, and I believe it was up near Clarksville. So, Harriet basically tries to file the paperwork so that she owns Potter's Point. And it's here that
Oh.
she finds out that not long before he died, Robert Potter had a will. Now, she didn't know
Oh,
about
okay. I feel a surprise coming here.
this is straight up 1800s Jerry Springer right here. So, oh, a lot of our viewers may not even get that reference, will they?
They
So,
may not. Oh my gosh, Jerry Springer, name from the past.
right.
Mhm.
All right. So she finds out that in this will, Potter left Harriet practically nothing. He left a large portion of the land itself um, to two women who were married to two politicians in Austin. Um,
Oh, I wonder what kind of backdoor dealings had been going on. Huh.
yeah.
Ah.
Um, so no one's ever been able to explain why. Now back then that would have been quite a scandal for a married woman to accept a gift like that of a large portion of land from another man who was also married to someone else.
You, you
um,
would think that even today, that's odd enough. I mean,
yeah,
it's not odd in one sense, but it is in the sense of the notoriety of individuals. So if somebody of great notoriety had done that today, there'd be
scandal.
questions, especially
Yes,
our modern press.
yes. But times were different back then.
Yes.
News and scandal like that didn't travel quite as fast or as prolifically. So no one really knows. You can speculate that again, remember way back when I said he made frequent trips to Austin, and was
Hmm.
gone for long periods of time. You can speculate that there was something going on, but there's no proof of that. And
Right.
these ladies claimed that nothing was happening, but then couldn't explain why he left them so much land when they were married to other politicians in Austin. So
Did he leave the land to the ladies or did he leave the land to the politicians?
to the ladies, to the politicians' wives.
See, this is fascinating to me because I'm thinking to myself, if he had left it to, the families or whatever, then okay, maybe some political dealings were going on back door, and as a reward for the political dealings, he was giving these gentlemen and maybe even their wives collectively. But that's not the case here, from what you're telling me.
Nope.
This land went to the women specifically, not to the men.
Yeah. He also left a large portion, well, large by our standards, but smaller than the ladies, portion of land to Harriet's brother.
Huh.
Also weird, right?
Very
Um,
weird.
very weird. There's no explanations for any of this. I have dug and dug and dug. I can't find anything.
And
So
you,
if anybody does find something, please reach out to me because I can't find any reasoning behind this.
I mean, other
Um,
than maybe he was just vindictive or he really just didn't love her from the very beginning.
mhm.
That's the only sometimes the simplest explanation is the only explanation. I could be wrong,
Occam's razor.
obviously, have
Yep.
no idea, but sometimes it's not out of the question that that's something that simple.
Now the piece. Now he did leave Harriet the actual physical house. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
That's good.
Harriet,
She got something.
but that house sat on a piece of land that was owned. The portion of that land that the house sat on was owned by one of these ladies in Austin. You cannot make this up. I mean, it's insanity.
Every time I think maybe she's going to catch a little break. Nope.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Oh,
So, so Harriet and Charles, of course, start fighting this and fighting this. Well, to their credit, these two mysterious politician ladies, well, politicians' wives, in Austin, never make claim on their deeds to this house or to this land. So Harriet's able to live there with Charles for quite a period of time. In the meantime,
wow.
Charles is elected. He becomes very active in politics. He is elected as the first, back then they called it Chief Justice, is what we call county judge now. It's the highest elected official in the county. Um, Charles Charles Ames became our first county judge, Chief Justice. He
Wow.
designed and had built our historic courthouse here in Cass County, which is to date the oldest antebellum courthouse still in use and constant use in the entire
I
state of
love
Texas.
that. That is so cool. So
So
cool.
now Charles Ames has a whole separate side story. He there's questions about who he really was, and that's what is hilarious now. He
Wait, wait,
claimed
wait. Stop. Stop. Third
Yeah,
husband. Third
yeah,
husband, right?
yeah, yeah.
And you're telling me we don't even know. First one was a deadbeat. Second one was maybe at best misrepresenter and who knows,
Adulterer
adulterer. And this third guy you're telling me is maybe not even the guy that we think
that
he
he
is,
claims. Yeah.
or he claimed to
So
be. Yes.
let's talk about Charles Ames for a minute. So in the record books, Charles Ames came to Texas with the whole, gone to Texas, starting over, so on and so forth, to make a more respectable life for himself. Um, became a businessman, became a soldier, became one officer, became a politician. Respectable society man. Okay. He
Mm.
claimed throughout this that he was from the Ames family of, I believe, Maine. I believe it was Maine. Might have been Massachusetts. One of the M's up in
Not
the
very
Northeast.
familiar. So
Yes, he claimed that that was the family he came from. Now, since then, um, somebody actually researched it all the way back to this family that he supposedly was from, and he's not one of them. He's not there is an Ames family there, but he's not one of them.
he's not on the tree.
No, and I mean, yeah, crazy. Harriet does have a couple of children by him, so now she's got one child left by Paige. She's got a couple of children by Robert. She has a couple of children by Charles. Anyways, irrelevant. Um, so some really interested historians have dug through this. One of the ladies is actually on the historic commission with me here in Cass County. Dug and dug and dug and even traveled all over the place trying to find out who this Charles Ames was. We don't even know if that's his real name. Okay, that's what's hilarious, right? Maybe he was Charles Ames, but just claimed to be from that prominent family. Maybe he had a totally different name. She found
And this is
evidence
the first supreme. What would you say? The
that,
first
Chief
chief
Justice,
judge.
aka County Judge, is what we call them now. Um, Yeah, but back then they didn't have the sleuthing abilities that we have now to dig through. You just took people at their word. They have letters of reference that they often carry with them. Basically like we carry our driver's license. But that's
Hmm.
you just had to believe him. That's
Hmm.
just it. He claimed that that's who he was. Well, the fact is, some of these historians have dug and found there was evidence that he actually went to Arizona and New Mexico first, was involved in some legal troubles out there, land robbing or land grabbing, cattle rustling, murder.
Wait. This is the same guy. Like this part is established that he did this. He's murder,
Back
land
then, they
wrestler.
didn't know that, and that he eventually, running from the law in New Mexico, ended up in Texas and painted himself as a prominent member of the Ames family from New England, and he started a furniture making business, and then, fought for the Republic of Texas, and then became the first county judge in Cass County. So,
Golly.
Harriet knows how to pick them now, I'll tell
Yes,
you.
she really does. I don't know if I was to feel sorry for her or just to tell her, man, girl, got to start looking elsewhere. Out of your choice of men here.
Yeah, I mean,
Golly.
Harriet, now to her credit, after Charles, she just gave up, but um she didn't do this anymore. But there's a lot of mystery surrounding this. We do know that that Mr. Ames, Judge Ames, whatever you want to call him, we know he did the courthouse thing and he was the county judge, but then he just kind of disappears um, from the history books. We don't know where he died. We don't know when he died. We don't know where he's buried. He just there is a mention in remember how I told you I went back and I looked at Harriet's journals that are down
Right.
stored down in Austin at the Briscoe Center. There is a one-line mention of him dying, and then that's it. Nobody knows. So he just
So
disappears from
she
the history book.
mentions that he dies though. So she knows.
Mhm,
So she knows he's died,
mhm.
but we don't know anything like
That's it.
if she was
We don't know
there.
where he's buried. We don't know when he died. We don't know how he died. He just died sometime around 1864, 1865. We don't know.
Golly, that's nuts.
Um, so anyway, so then Harriet, now around the time that Charles dies, um, the one of the politician's wives who got this, this land from Potter, suddenly she passes away, um, unrelated, and her children say, "Hey, you've got this deed to this land up there. Why have you never made claim on this? Okay, Harriet, you need to go." So they make claim on the deed. Um, and Harriet is now homeless. Well, meanwhile, she's not a spring chicken anymore. So she by now has family that has set up residence and business and so on back in New Orleans. So Harriet goes back to New Orleans and lives out her days there. Um, her death was recorded. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but her death was recorded. She was buried they're in Louisiana, but her family chose to keep her um, place of rest completely secret, so nobody really knows. It's speculated that it's one of the graveyards in or around New Orleans. So our heroine is no longer on Texas soil. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah,
kind of sad, actually. That's
it
kind of
is. It
sad
is.
because most of her
Uh,
life was up here.
hmm Now you flash forward a long, long time. And Potter's Point has changed hands and been split off and so on and so forth. They did put a monument to our dear Harriet up there at Potter's Point. Um, and then there is an author who specializes in writing Texas historical fiction. This lady, okay. And it's brought to her attention these memoirs that Harriet wrote are found um, in an abandoned house, and that's the story. In an abandoned house, you can only assume that they're probably at an abandoned house at Potter's Point, but that's just an assumption. They're found and brought to.
That would be
Um,
so interesting if they were found in either her old house or a relative's house or something to that nature. But
and
it's
I'm
it's
willing to bet that there was something like that, but I'm not really sure. I various accounts say that they were found at Potter's Point or an abandoned house near there. Who knows? Um, And she kept a pretty detailed journal. So they're found, and Hamilton Kirkland reads them and says, "Oh my God, here's my story." So she writes "Love Is a Wild Assault," based on these memoirs. Like I said back in the beginning, she does fill in some blanks, takes a little bit of artistic license on a few things, but for the most part, keeps as close to them as possible. The journals are transcribed. Back into to typewritten because they were, of course, handwritten when they were original,
oh yeah,
typed
I'm sure.
and stored down at the Briscoe Center down at University of Texas down in Austin. Um, and the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, so Potter's Point now is it's a little resort fishing area. There's some little fishing cabins and a couple of houses out there that are right there on the point. There is a beautiful monument and a little bench and a place to go out and out there and read about our heroine. Um, the courthouse still stands, and Cass County moves on. So there we
Golly,
are.
that is an unbelievable story. I don't know if I've read a lot of histories, and haven't read as many, or I don't think I've read any, I should say, history that is as miserable or misfortunate as this poor woman. What an incredible, in a degrading way, I hate to say, what an incredible life, right?
She so much pain and sorrow, but at the same time, she bore witness to some of the most dynamic changes in our history,
Well,
in Texas history.
she would have been very young, but she would have been around when New Orleans moved uh,
Mhm.
in to switch hands from France to the United States, come into Texas while it was still under Mexico's rule, was here for the the Revolutionary War, the Texas Revolutionary War, had a couple different husbands involved. All three of her husbands were involved in that war. Saw
Mhm.
Texas become a state. Would have seen Texas go through the Civil War, right? We didn't really.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem to have impacted directly her life, but she would have been a part of the state during that particular time
Mhm.
period. And then, if you think about it for just a second, when you discuss like um, women's rights, right? We're not, of course, anywhere near suffrage at the moment, but here she is. She's mixed up in a lot of things that women didn't really get privy to. A lot of the
Mhm.
land ownership, the business ownership that she had. I mean, there's a lot going on in her life that should, in fact, just as we're doing now, should be studied because it's kind of a very unique thing if you think about it.
Mhm. Um,
Golly.
and each at each turn with each husband, um, there's so much scandal and mystery. Like we never find out what happened to Solomon Page. Who knows? He just disappears off the
Or
map.
Ames,
We never
really,
find out
right?
Charles Ames. The only one that we know for sure what happens is Robert Potter. But we never talked about that. So Rose Rose and his family went on to become fixtures in Cass County. And their descendants are still in Cass County today. In
Wow.
fact, another lady on the historic commission with me is I say distantly related. He was Roaring Rose was one of her great great uncles or something like great 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 uncle, something like that. Um, so the Rose family is still in the area, but the Rose family was pivotal to the formation of one of our little towns, to Hugh Springs in Cass County. I mean, like so it the legacy, I guess, still lives on here. Um,
It's very interesting. I guess because so my family is new to the states, right? I guess relatively new, right? Um, we date back about to the 19 turn of the 20th century, 19 teens, and
mhm,
thereabout. When my family comes over, and then my understanding is that at least on my father's side, comes through Pennsylvania and then into New York. But my family just spread out everywhere. So, and then of course eventually I make it down here to Texas myself. But I meet a lot of families down here, and a lot of the people that came to Texas, the GTT movement,
mhm,
they stayed. Like these families become they're not kind of like where I feel like a little bit my family is having more of a migratory background. Like, no, people came here and then that was it. Like they stayed here. And there's a
mhm.
lot of all these families that have these long standing lineages. So it's interesting because a lot of them are able to trace their family ancestry. It became a very big thing for them to be able to trace their ancestry once they came to Texas going forward, right?
Yeah,
And so it's very interesting that hers and the people that she's surrounded with are lost. She doesn't get the glory like of some of these other big names, some of the recognition that they get with names on building placards and everything. It's just not there. It's very interesting. It's kind of mirrors her life, so to speak, right? Where
yeah,
everything about her poor life was like, you know, kind of kicked to the curb, kind of kicked to the side. But I think that's
yep.
what makes her history all that more interesting, if you will, right?
Talk about resilience. I mean, she rolled through some of the most difficult things anyone could go through, much less go through back then,
Mm,
and just c she just kept going. I mean, but what choice did she have? Of course she kept going.
right,
Now, she did have we know of at least 2 surviving sons, because remember she had 2 with Paige, she had 2 with Potter, she had 2 with Ames, um, that she mentions in the journals. But then, of course, one of them died with Paige. Um, we believe she had 2 remaining children. She had multiple pregnancies during the time with Potter, but only 2, I believe, surviving.
right. Not uncommon.
Yes, and then she supposedly had two with Ames, but we don't know. What we do know is that when she moved back to New Orleans, when she lost the homestead, she was staying with the family of one of her sons. It's speculated that it was her oldest son, which would be the one that she had remaining from Paige, but it's not written. We don't really know for
Hmm.
sure. So some of Harriet's line continues on, but continues on in Louisiana.
Okay. I was going to say that was going to be my next question. Do we know where any of these her children went? And
I'm sure some historians have dug through and found out. From what I have seen, there's nobody else back here in Texas, but I could be wrong about that, and I readily admit that.
mhm.
What I found was descendants in New Orleans or in that area.
Golly. Well, Misty, here's the last question to ask here is when are you writing the
Okay.
miniseries to be turned into a TV production? I'm waiting for the series to come out, and I got to have the script. When's
Well,
it coming?
so L.F. Hamilton Kirkland wrote this great book, and that sparked my interest, and then I read the memoirs, and then I've done other research. Sometimes it's been a research about Charles Ames, sometimes it's been about Potter, sometimes it's been about Harriet. I guess nobody has really put it all together into one story like that, I would imagine. At least not now. Remember, now she put it all together, but it's a sort of historical fiction, but it's based on true story. I was thinking about putting it all together in more of a factual tone,
Hmm.
nonfiction for a book. I love to write, and it's on my list. Now, if Hollywood wants to pick it up and make a movie or a mini series out of it, I am all for it. It is in the works.
Good, good. But I do know what it's on my list means. Listen, I have got hundreds of wonderful books written in my head, but they are on a list. Now,
Um,
I would guess that none of them will make it to paper. So I hope that you're able to turn this into paper because I think it's a fascinating story and I think you'd be really good at it. I think you could write a
I
really
would
good book
say
on this.
probably this time next year I will have it written. But what happens to it after that, I don't know. I'm very new to the whole freelance writing thing, so I'm not really sure what to do with it. I've got one book that's completely not history related, that is on deck that I've just about finished up with. But what happens to that after that, I don't know. I have another book that is based around historic people from Cass County that
Mm.
will be coming out sometime next year. So we'll see. It's on deck. I have a list of books that I want to write, and that is the next one on the list. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, in the good old Texas voice, uh, get her done.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Misty, thank you for joining us on the program. We hope you all had a really good time, everyone that listened in. Stay tuned. We will pick up our next program after the Thanksgiving break.